I remember when I attended the Brethren Church, the Bible-believing ones, when we came to that passage at the end of John, when 153 fishes are caught on the instruction of Jesus Christ, and it is specified that the net break not despite the great load. That's important. I asked the preacher what was the significance of the 153, and he shrugged and told me, well, scholars have been discussing it and theologians, and there's no consensus. We just don't really know. And I just had to take that on board. That's how it was. That's before I'd heard Brandon Peterson explain that the name Peter appears 153 times, in 153 verses rather, in the New Testament. And Peter was the chief apostle to the Jews, to our people. And also the name Paul appears 153 times in the New Testament. Paul, the chief apostle to the Gentiles, the nations, of course. So the number begins to appear quite significant, because catching fish and preaching the gospel are synonymous in the Bible. And the fish are the saved souls. And so, of course, the net doesn't break, because all that be rescued by Jesus Christ will be preserved. That's a biblical promise. So that number begins to take on quite a different hue. And somebody else pointed out concerning the number 153 that when King Ahaziah is sick, he sends his men to find Elijah, because he wants to inquire of the Lord whether he will recover from his sickness. They recognized the power of the prophet, even though they continued to worship pagan gods in Samaria. But when push comes to shove, I guess, he wanted a reliable prediction, and that can only come from the Lord. And so he sends 50 soldiers and their captain, and Elijah is on a hill, I guess, in isolation, sitting on the top of a hill. And the captain commands him to come down in the name of the king. And Elijah says, well, if I be a holy man of God, or if I be here by the will of God, then let fire come down and consume thee and thy 50. And so it occurs, of course, they're consumed by fire. 50 soldiers and their captain. And that happens again, a second time, with another 50. And the third 50, when they come along, the captain goes up the hill and kneels before Elijah and prays for the mercy of the Lord upon his head and the head of his 50. And it is granted, of course. And so there you get 153. Again, it's another, the 153rd, as it were, is the captain. And he's saved, and his men are saved. It could have a relevance, you see. I think it has. So, matters like that, and then discovering the recurrence of sevens and 777 and 770 times 7 and so on and so forth in the New Testament, all line up perfectly with the number of times that the name Jesus Christ, or just Jesus, or just Christ, appears in the New Testament, it's always multiples of 7, or 70 times 7, which is the biblical number for forgiveness of sin, because you are to forgive your brother of a sin against you 70 times 7 times. I can't remember what the total is, but my mathematics is not great, but it's easily found. And that the numbers just keep coming up throughout the New Testament. This is what Brandon Peterson has revealed, and I think it was known before, but among a very limited group of people, and it didn't get any promotion, of course. So I'm wary of biblical numerology because it gets linked up with agnosticism, and I've never really followed it. But there's a clear argument for it, and so I've come to understand that not only is the Bible full of truth in the words and ideas that it contains, but it's full of truth on a very deep level, because if the codification of the words and the numbers that result, that's supernatural. There's no way that can happen randomly and be perfectly aligned with just one Bible, and that's the King James Bible. And it's not actually the 1611, it's the revised version with a few errors removed from it. It doesn't quite work with the 1611 in a few cases. But in the King James Bible that we have today, if you order it from Amazon, that's the one you'll get. It works perfectly. So the entire Bible will be codified. You're just not able to see it because, we're not used to doing those, to making that kind of analysis. But it's there and it's working when you read from the Holy Bible, especially if you read aloud. I've been reading Psalm 119 over the past couple of days. I finished it last night, but it just bears rereading. You're just praising the Lord and the blessings of those 22 sections. It's the longest psalm in the Bible, of course. It's just worth doing, especially in these dark times. We need to praise the Lord and to thank him and to seek his hand and his arm and his eyes upon us at all times, to be jealous of our relationship with Jesus Christ and to worship him in all moments. It's not an empty gesture, it's a real thing that we need to do, because our God is a jealous God, and he is the way, the truth, and the life. He's the only way out of the mess that the world has fallen into due to the actions of the adversary. Psalm 119 has 22 sections, and each section contains 8 verses, making a total of 176. I'm not even going to say what that means. I don't really know, but it will mean something. And on this note, I would say if anybody is listening who uses the Italian Bible, the Diodati has changed the order. No, it's changed the division between the sections or the Diodati that I have, and also the old, both Diodatis, so that the last verse of each section, instead of being the last verse, is the first verse of the following section. So there's a disparity. I don't know why that happened. It's patently wrong, because you can see that there's no direct relationship between the first verse and the second verse. It belongs to the preceding section. Well, I don't know. I mean, it's just mind-blowing, basically. And so we know that we have a sacred text, and that blessings will come through the reading of that text. The next psalm, that has 8 verses, I just looked at that, I'd noticed it out of interest, is Psalm 121. 120 has 7, and 7, of course, is a significant number. It's the number of completion, and 120 is calling for protection from lying lips, and we are certainly surrounded by lying lips at present. And 121 is a reassurance and a blessing in the 8 verses. I'll read them, why not? I will lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, he that keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is thy keeper. The Lord is thy shade upon thy right hand. The sun shall not smite thee by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve thee from all evil. He shall preserve thy soul. The Lord shall preserve thy going out and thy coming in, from this time forth and even for evermore. What a blessing, and a blessing to anybody who may have heard this today.